قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يبلغون رسالات الله ويخشونه ولا يخشون أحدا إلا الله وكفى بالله حسيبا. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
الله صل على
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام.
The night of 10th of Rabi Thani or Rabi Akhir marks the wafat of Bibi Masuna Kun, daughter of our Sayyid Imam Musa al-Kadhim alayhi salatu wassalam. Also, 8th of this month marks the wiladat of our 11th Imam, which of course we had celebrated on Tuesday night, which was the night of the wiladat. And 10th of Rabi Thani, as I mentioned, is the night of the wafat. So there's some weak riwayat for the wiladat of our 11th Imam on the night of 10th as well, but that is not the ma'ruf date. The one that is more celebrated in the Shia world is 8th day of Rabiul Akhir. But when it comes to Bibi Masuna Qum, one thing is musallam, and there's no doubt, the year of her wafat and passing away. That is the year 201 after Hijrah. And there are many shawahid as to why it is the year 201. One of them is that when Allah had written a letter to his family, inviting them. Amongst those who were invited was Bibi Masuna Qum, who took out on this journey, and she was, takes out, all the abilities that she had while she was taking care of things in the city of Medina, but she leaves that behind to go. This was in the year 201. Also, which is important, is that the tiles that you find in the Haram of Bibi Masuna Qum, I had the opportunity to live there for some 7 years. The tiles still bear the date, and this goes back centuries ago. The year of her wafat, which was 201. But then there was this query as to what day or what date in the Islamic calendar year. There are 3 dates that are primarily mentioned as far as the wafat is concerned. Of course, when we have discrepancy in the dates of Ma'asumeen, the Jahar Ma'asumeen, then of course the family of their 14 Ma'asumeen will find debate over that as well. One of the dates that is mentioned is the 10th day of Rabi Thani. Second date which is mentioned is the 12th day of Rabi Thani. And the third narration is in the month of Shaban. Therefore, the consensus of ulama was that because the first 2 dates are close to each other, there's more rujhan that this is one of those days in which her wafat might have taken place. So they have basically discarded the date in the month of Shaban, and they consider one of these 2 dates to be the wafat of this great lady. In fact, in Qum, these 3 days are called Ayyam al-Masumiyah. Ayyam al-Masumiyah meaning the 3 days of commemoration of the wafat or the shahadat of Bibi Masuna Qum. Before I get into some of dynamics of her life and some important aspects of her life, very quickly, the ayat that I shared with you from Surah Ahzab, ayat number 39, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يُبَلِّغُونَ رِسَالَاتِ اللَّهِ وَيَخْشَوْنَهُ. Those who do the tabligh and carry out the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيَخْشَوْنَهُ. And at the same time, when they're carrying out the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they fear Him as well. And then right after that, وَلَا يَخْشَوْنَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا اللَّهِ. These are the individuals who do not fear anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ hasiba. And indeed, Allah is sufficient for them. With this ayat, the reason I chose is because Ma'asum Qum's life revolves around it as well. You find many stories regarding her, inshallah we'll tie towards the end as well as to how this fits related to her travel that she made and eventually her wafat in the city of Qum, how this ayat is related to that as well. That الَّذِينَ يُبَلِّغُونَ رِسَالَاتِ اللَّهِ, those who do the tabligh and propagation of the messages of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they don't fear anyone, regardless of how difficult the society may be, the rulers may be, how difficult the path and the road ahead may be. They fear only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That makes their azm and the determination undeterred, and وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ حَسِيبًا. They also learn to only rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that tawakkul is on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now coming to the life of Bibi Ma'asum, she lived a very illustrious life in a sense filled with ilm and sciences and knowledge and karamat, and you name it. Because being raised under the auspices of such as our seventh Imam, as well as our eighth Imam, her older brother. One thing that she is different from others in sense is that she is the only sister from the same mother from Imam Rada. So both Bibi Ma'asum and Imam Rada are from the same mother. We know that our seventh Imam was Kathirul Awlad. Some 34 children are mentioned amongst the awlad of our seventh Imam. Two of them are from the same mother, which is Najma Khatun, a very commonly known name. She was the mother of our eighth Imam as well as mother of Bibi Ma'asum. Now there's a 20-year difference in the birth of our eighth Imam, who was born in the year 148, while the wiladat of Bibi Ma'asum is in the year 173. Keeping that in perspective, the shahadat of seventh Imam is in the year 183. So she spends about 10 years, and even from those 10 years, only about 6 years with her father. Because in the year around 179 is when Imam was summoned by Harun al-Rashid, and eventually he was killed and martyred in Baghdad in Kaldman. Imam did not make it back to Medina to be able to bid farewell to the family, and the shahadat takes place in Baghdad, and Imam is buried in Kaldania, as you all know. Now, with the shahadat of Imam, and then the continuation of Harun's hukumat, we all know the two children of Harun, Mamun and Amin, one from an Arab mother, one from the Iranian mother. Mamun from the Iranian mother and Amin from the Arab mother. They had this dispute over the hukumat, and eventually the hukumat goes that Mamun was able to defeat his brother Amin, and then he was the sole Khalifa of Abbasids all over Muslim world, east to west, from Khorasan all the way to Marrakesh, wherever the Muslim empire extended. Only Harun al-Rashid's sons, Mamun al-Rashid, was the only sole ruler. Now, with that power in your hand, you understand that this is a big deal. Today, someone becomes a mayor or a congressman or leads a country, for example, is small in size. The protocol that is provided to them and the way they're treated is out of this world, because they're VIPs, a very important person, because they're now the sarbara of a government. Now imagine this man has the hukumat from all the way from Khorasan, and today Khorasan, what we know, is not the Khorasan of that day. It included a lot of the parts of north, before the Russia was broken, north part of Iran. All of that was included in the Azerbaijan area, and others were included in Khorasan. Nonetheless, we established the point that he was a very strong and powerful ruler of his time, having this control over the entire Muslim Ummah. He, eventually what he does, he summons our 8th Imam as well. Now, Ibn Mas'ud lived for about 6 years, as I said before. Imam Mu'taqadim left for Baghdad and Karaman, and his martyrdom takes place over there. She spent 6 years with her father. But there are so many merits that are mentioned even within 6 years. You've heard this story many a time. Just wanted to highlight this so that our sisters feel this responsibility as well. That, it's the ilm and the sciences and education where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not kept any sort of disparity or as far as ranks are concerned. No. Never said that one gender is above the other gender. You can excel in excellences and in education and other fields, and you can earn that maqam. When it comes to ibadat, it doesn't matter. Min dhakarin aw untha. Ayat of Quran is very clear about that. Min dhakarin aw untha. Whoever does righteous deeds from dhakar or untha, from male or female, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant them the highest of the maqam. It's not like someone will get secondary maqam and so on and so forth. So with this said, there are 4 daughters of Imam Musa Kazim that are mentioned in the books of Tariq, especially by a famous 8th century Sunni scholar, Ibn Jawzi. Who are these 4? All 4 are named Fatima. Fatima Kubra, Fatima Sughra, Fatima Wusta, and Fatima Ukhra. All were named Fatima. You see, when someone will come to Imam and say, Mawla, you don't have any of the names available that all the names are after. Same question was asked by 4th Imam. Then how can your father name all the kids, all your brothers and siblings to be Ali? He said, we were only 3, he named all 3 of us Ali. Ali Akbar, Ali Awsat, Ali Asfar. He said, if we were more, he would continue to name us Ali something, Ali something. So there's nothing wrong in repetition of the name, because the fruits that it bears, number 1. And naming is very important. This is actually a duty of both parents, especially the fathers. And that's why you see in the riwayat, whenever a child was born in the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Janab Sayyida, it was referred to Imam Ali, you go ahead and name it. Janab Sayyida did not say, well, I'm going to name my child this because I feel like it. The protocol was always given. Of course, mutual understanding. You can't say, well, from now on, Allah has said only the fathers will be naming their children and mothers have no say in it. No, that's not what I'm saying. But there's this protocol that was shown in the household that Amir al-Mu'mineen was considered to be the leader of the household, and Janab Sayyida looked up to him as the Imam of the Ummah. So Imam Ali said, well, I can't take lead on Rasulullah. He's superior. So you refer to the one who's superior. Usually at this point I say, if there are grandparents in the house, take their consensus as well. Ask for their permission as well. Take their right and opinion as well as to what should we name our children. So it's a very important responsibility that lies on the shoulders of the parents to give their children a good name. Amongst the ahkam that are mentioned, rights that are mentioned on father and mother, is number 1, and yuhassin ismahu. Give your child a good name. A name that tomorrow people don't make fun of that name. Something which is pleasant and also carries good meaning, so that it is something which makes this person proud and doesn't feel as if the name is holding this person back. A lot of psychological issues and whatnot. So there are 4 Fatimas that are found. Now where are these 4 Fatimas? We only know about Bibi Masudakum Salamullah. She's Fatima Kubra. She's Masudakum. She's the Kubra. She's the oldest one. And of course we know she's buried in the city of Qom. Second is Fatima Sughra, who is buried in the city of Isfahan, or rather Fatima Wusta. She's buried in the city of Isfahan. She's also known as Sitti Fatima, Lady Fatima. Is referred to, and her shrine is there, and Ziyarah is mawjood. Third is Fatima Sughra. She is known as Bibi Haybat. There's a story behind as to why she's called Bibi Haybat. She's buried in Azerbaijan. There's a beautiful dome and that used to be on her shrine, which was destroyed by the communist Russia, but then afterwards it was rebuilt and it is still the place of ziyarat of many folks. The story is the man who was found in that area, his name was Haibat. And he, out of respect to Fatma Sughra, not knowing what her name is, respect to her, didn't say anything to her and assisted her, provided help whatever he could. And then, whenever she was mentioned, she was referred to her, this lady was referred by the name of this man who rescued her. Haibat was his name, so she was known as Bibi Haibat. Haibat was the man who rescued her, for example. So this is the third daughter of Musa al-Kadhim. Fourth is Fatima Ukhra, also known as Fatima Tahira. She's also buried in the city of Rasht in Iran. So all four of them close by. Now there's a story as to why they were all making their way to Iran. Why were they all headed in that direction? Number one, as I mentioned and alluded in the beginning, because Imam al-Rada actually wrote a letter. Because when Imam left the city of Medina, Imam bid farewell to his son. He's saying what? That this is farewell because I will not come back. My child, and so bid farewell to me from right now, this moment. And then when Imam arrives in Maghrib, and of course the reasons why Mamun invited Imam is to his government. That all the followers of Imams, he wanted to gain their support as well. And in order to do that, what is the best way? To go ahead and have the Imam of the Shias with him, alongside with him. So he announces the crownship. When he announces the crownship and the wilayat of Imam al-Rada after him, he does one thing. And that is that he sends a letter to 4 different cities and keeps one in Khurasan, where they were. 4 cities are Makkah, Medina, Sham, and in Iraq, one of the cities in Iraq. He sends it to 4 different places and keeps one letter in Marib, in Mashhad by himself. What was written on these letters? This was the wikalat that was saying, issuing an order and authority on behalf of the ruler of the Abbasid ruler, Harun Mamun al-Rashid, who was the king of the time, that this is the official decree that in Khutbah Jum'ah, the name of Imam al-Rada will be mentioned. So the way you hear Friday prayers, one of the integral part of Friday prayer is what? That we name the names of all of the Aimma Ashab. This is not something which is done istihbaban. This is amongst the integral part of the khutbah of Jum'ah. No matter where you go in the Shia world, khutbah Jum'ah, you'll hear the names of are mentioned. This is part of the khutbah. So and this is how it's supposed to be. For the time of Rasulullah, when he led Jum'ah, in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, whenever he had the opportunity to lead the Jum'ah, for example, in the 4 years of Imam's Hukumat, and whenever our other Imams had the opportunities. This is how it was. This is the reason why Salatul Jum'ah became what? Wajib Taqiyiri. It still is wajib, but it's wajib Taqiyiri. Why? Taqiyir means you have ikhtiyar, you have the choice. Either you offer Jum'ah on Friday or you offer what? Salatul Dhuhr. Which is superior? Jum'ah, of course. The reason it's given as wajib Taqiyiri and not wajib Aini like Salatul Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Not like that. The reason is because the absence of Imam, and even in the time of the Khulafa Abbasi, the name of Imam was not mentioned in the Jum'ah khutbah. And Jum'ah was being led by those who usurped the right of Imam ﷺ. In fact, in the time of Banu Umayyah, forget the name of Imam that was being mentioned. There was Sabbu Shaitan. There was curse on the name of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Al-Rahman. So you want to attend a Jummah where Imam is being cursed? You want to be part of such a Jummah where Imam is being, so this was something which was being done. And hence what happened, that this was given as hukum, we found it in the books of hadith, that Imam said, in the absence of Imam, it is wajib takhiri. You have a choice. Because there's a possibility where you attend Jum'ah, there's a curse that is being sent on Imam of the time. Or the name of Imam of the time is not being mentioned. What did Mamun do? Mamun sent this letter, official decree of the Khalifa of Muslimin, that the name of Imam al-Rada will be mentioned in all the Jum'ah khutbah. Number two, what he did, he said, name of Imam al-Rada will be minted on the coin. So he did these two things. Now, of course, he was trying to do this to gain support of the Shias. Now, Shias will say, look, he's working for us. He's including the name of Imam into Jum'ah khutbah, and he's minting coins with the name of Imam on it. What could be the more, pro Ahl-e-Bait than this man? So a lot of people fell victim and prey to this ploy of Mamun al-Rashid, and hundreds of people, some riwayat mentioned 12,000 people made the migration toward Mashhad. 12,000 of them made this migration. So well, now we want to go and live near Imam of our time. And we want to be close to Imam of our time. So a lot of people started visiting Mashhad, which was a far, far away place. Even today, you know where it is. You visited it. At that time, how far away it is from Baghdad, the center of the Muslim Ummah. That's why we believe that Al-Hukumat was where? Kufa. And then the other Khulafa, they kept it in Medina, so far away from Medina. But nonetheless, people started migrating. So therefore, you see so many of the children of Imams that migrated to Iran, what happened in this time, in this era, in the time of our Imam. A lot of them came, number one, persecuted by the, Quran over here, and number two, this land where Imam Rada is being recognized. So this became the reason for all this mass migration from Muslimin, and especially the Shia and the followers of Ahl-e-Bait Muhammad. So when you find so many shrines of children of Aimma Athar in Iran, don't be surprised. And they all made this migration, and that's the reason they're all there. Amongst those who made this migration was Bibi Masunakum Salamullahi Alaiha as well. Now, as far as her title is concerned, she is known as Ma'suma. This Ma'suma title was not given to her during her life. This was given to her by Imam al-Rada after her wafat. We have a right. Imam al-Rada is exhorting people to go for the ziyarat of Ma'sumakum. Man zara al-Fatima bikum kaman zarani. Whoever visited Ma'suma in Qum, it is as if he visited me. So Imam is putting his ziyarat equal to the ziyarat of his sister. Imagine that maqam, number one. And then he calls her not Fatima in this hadith. Man zara al-Fatima, you could have said that. He's a man zara al-Ma'suma bikum. So he refers to her as Ma'suma. So here, a question might arise in your minds as to, do we have 14 Ma'sumin, or there's Ismat extends to some other family members as well? Well, Ismat in the Shia perspective is twofold. One type of Ismat, infallibility, is Ma'sum Anil Khata. Number two is Ma'sum Anil Ma'siyah. One is that you are Ma'soom and infallible from sinning. Number two, you're Ma'soom and infallible from committing an error. Both are Isma. Now, when it comes to 14 Ma'soomin, both of them are true. They are Ma'soom anil khata and anil ma'siyah. There's no sin and there's no khata in the life of 14 Ma'soomin. They did not make mistakes. And of course, sin is away from them. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. Now, with that understanding, there are personalities in Ahl-e-Bait who are excelling above and beyond other individuals, such as Lady Zainab, such as Abul Fadl Abbas, such as Bibi Ma'sumakum. These individuals, the ismat that we feel or we ulama have spoken about their ismat is not from latter but from former. Meaning what? They're masoom from sinning, they don't commit sins either. But they're not masoom from committing errors. There's a possibility that in their judgment they might come about an error. They might make a mistake. But there's no haram that could be committed from them. Amen. How can I give an example? That if you are raised and brought up in a family, in a household where there's no opportunity to do haram, well, you're not going to be doing any haram. And then the upbringing is done in such an environment. Let's say you grew up in Najaf or you grew up in Qom, in a very educational household, in the house of a Marja Taqleed, in the house of a Mujtahid and whatnot. Of course, very little opportunity. And then you're also, from the very beginning of your life, 7, 8, 9 years old, you start studying in the house as well. And then, of course, it's not like you don't have any exposure to the outside world, but nonetheless, you're taken care of in a sense that you're away from all, the khurafat that exist. So you could raise someone with that. Even today here, in the United States, you can raise children where you can keep them away from all of these fallacies that exist around us. There's a possibility. With that said, if these people are being raised, the Muslim Ummah is being raised under the tutelage of 8th Imam, under the care of 7th Imam, then of course, so there isn't anything that you find as far as the character is concerned. So that they were masoom from ma'asiyat, but they were not masoom from, for example, committing errors. So this is what the ismat of ma'asuma is associated with Ma'asumakum salamullahi alayhi wa sallam Muhammad wa alihi. There's always been a contention to find the grave of Janab Fatima Zahra, the daughter of Rasulullah, right? We don't know. A lot of people say it's in Baqi, some people say it's near the grave of Rasulullah, and some people say it's between the Rawza of Rasul and the Mimbar of Rasul. Some say it's between where Rasulullah is buried and the Baqi, or in that vicinity somewhere. It has to be somewhere within that vicinity because that's where Ahlul Mu'min buried her. But he did not leave any sign of her burial. And that was for a purpose. So the father of Ayatollah Mar-Rashid Najafi, whom if you have visited home, you must have visited his library, 250,000 books, and majority of them, hand manuscripts that he collected. How he collected that is another story for another day. He wasn't a wealthy man by any stretch of imagination. He fasted on behalf of others, and that's how he earned money so that he could go ahead and spend it all on what? On collecting these books from different parts of the world. Anyways, his father did this wadifa for 40 days, this supplication for 40 days, so that he could see where the actual grave of Bibi Masrur is, or rather where the actual grave of Bibi Fatima Zahra is. On the 40th day, he sees in his dream who? Imamain al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. And both of them respond to him by saying, Alayka bi karimati Ahl-e-Bait. Upon you is to do the ziyarat of Karimah Ahl-e-Bait. He gets excited and says, yes, that's what I want to do. He thought Karimah Ahl-e-Bait refers to Fatima Zahra. He said, where is the ziyarat of Bibi Fatima? He said, Alayka bi karimati Ahl-e-Bait, meaning Fatima and Ma'asuma sallallahu alayhi. And he was told that upon you is to do the ziyarat of Ma'asuma until the grave of Fatima Zahra becomes known where it is, because it's been kept hidden from Ammatul Muslimin. He wakes up, first thing that he does, he goes for the ziyarat of Ma'asuma because he lived in Tehran. He visited and he went for the ziyarat. His son, who's Shahabuddin Mar-Rashid Najafi, he spends his next 60 years in Qom. He lives in 60 years in the next 60 years and his, wafat. And his method was that every morning, first thing that he would do, he would go for the ziyarat of Bibi Masrur before the doors were even open. Many people said, first person that we saw standing, because the haram did not remain open 24/7 back in those days. In the time of Shah, the haram was not open 24/7. It is after the inqilab, the barakat and the fuyuzat of inqilab that you see so many things that are happening. But before that, haram wasn't open 24 hours. So he would stand at the door before the Mutawalli would come and open the doors of the Haram Masjid. First thing in his thing that he did for the next 60 years of his life was to go ahead and do the ziyarat of Masjid Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Allah.
So we see that this is not something which came later on. This was an instruction given by Ayyamah Atar before Masjid was born. That's why you find so many riwayat from our sixth Imam as well, who says, "Satudkhalu fiha imra'atun." There would be a person who would be buried in that land. Min awladi, amongst my children, to Samma Fatima. Her name is Fatima. She will be buried in that land. Faman zaraha fajabalahu Jannah. Whoever visited her, Jannah becomes obligatory upon her. And then says, "Ismuha Fatima bint Musa, wa tadkhulu bi shafa'atiha shi'ati al-Jannah." Her name is Fatima, and the followers will enter Jannah, all of them, with her shafa'at. With her shafa'at. Let me tell you a story over here. That there was a big drought in the city of Qom in the year 1295. And of course, Qom has always been a city of ilm since the wujud of Masjid Qom. She came in the year 2201. And from that moment on, she laid the foundation of ilm in that city. And now today what you see, Qom is the Mecca of Islamic education. There was a drought in 1295. 40 pious men amongst the ulama over there were asked to go to the haram of the Masjid Qom and pray for rain. Because our animals were dying, the crops were dying, and of course, majority at that time relied on these things. We're not living in a time and space where we go to the grocery stores. A lot of dependent on buying these things from the farmers market. And so there was a drought. Famine was hitting them. So 40 pious men were sent to the haram of the Masjid for dua, supplication. They said 3 days they did this dua and supplication. Of course, there's namaz istisqa as well for it to rain. Third day, one of the pious men who was there, he said, I saw one of the Maraja of that time. His name was Mirza Ummi. He said, I saw Mirza Ummi, who said to me, what are you here for? He said, well, the city is in a drought. There's no rain. Our animals are dying and all this is happening. So we're doing this dua. He said, for rain you have come? That's something we can do for you. We'll make dua and that will happen. If you come to Masjid Qom, ask for Jannah, not rain.
Subhanallah.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given shafa'at to her. That through her shafa'at you can earn Jannah. You're merely asking for rain. If you want rain, we can take care of that for you. It's not a problem. You make dua, your dua will be accepted. And of course, it is mentioned in Riwayat that this story is narrated by Ayatollah Ishqey Ahl-e-Bait in his book Fatima Masuma, Fatima Dubun. That's the name of the book. That he narrates the story about that drought that happened. And I looked it up. These days, information technology, you can find and you can relate these stories and you can easily find the source of it. That yes, such a drought did take place at that time. And this Ayatollah is saying, if you want rain, we can take care of that for you. But when you come to the Barah of Masjid Qom, ask for nothing less than Jannah.
Allah.
Last issue, and then inshallah I'll conclude, is there's so many riwayat in reference to marriage, that how marriage is one of the foundations of Islam. There isn't any foundation stronger in Islam than the foundation of marriage. And why is it that we see that the daughter of Imam Musa remained unmarried? Well, there are a couple of reasons that are mentioned. There was a time in the time of fifth Imam, some people said some women refrain from getting married due to two reasons. Because of piety and self-purification. And so Imam Bakr refuted by saying, if anyone intended to get purity and self-purification then no one would be above Fatima Zahra, who actually got married. So if that was the criteria to not get married because it will keep you away from purity and chastity, and it will keep you away from self-purification, then you have wronged yourself. No, get married. Why? Because Fatima Zahra did not remain unmarried. Of course, if there was no kufr for Fatima Zahra, she would remain unmarried as well, but Amir Mu'mineen was created for that particular reason. So the reason why the daughter of our seventh Imam remained unmarried is two reasons that I mentioned. Number one, that her maqam and her place, demanded someone of that caliber to be married to her. Number two, people, because of the surveillance by the Banu Abbas, they refrained from having any relationship with the house of Imam Musa al-Qadim. If you were seen around Imam Musa al-Qadim, you would be persecuted, let alone someone comes and becomes the damad of Imam Musa al-Qadim, right? So you're calling for your death and so on. So these were the reasons why she remained unmarried. There was no other reason of any self-purification or whatever the case may be, or marriage was, for example, looked down upon. That was not the case as far as Fatima Zahra is concerned. Now, Fatima also is concerned. As far as her travel is concerned, and I'll conclude with that and the Masaib, then some scholars mention that the Masnaqum traveled to Iran to do the ziyarah of Imam al-Rada. And that was the reason for her travel. In fact, this is not the only reason for her travel. One of the reasons for her travel was to also play the role of what Janab Sayyida did in the time of Rasulullah. Bibi Zainab did in the time of Imam Hussein. That role had to be played by some lady in the form of Bibi Masnaqum, who was the sister of Imam al-Rada. While Imam al-Rada is living in Mazlumiyat, right? You read in Ziyarah what? Gharibul Ghuraba. But have you seen the haram of Gharibul Ghuraba? Does he look like Gharibul Ghuraba from anywhere? Well, that is the karamat of Iran. That he is the Shah of Iran. He is the Shah of Khorasan, right? It's called Shah Khorasan. But that's the, vadiyat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there was someone needed to carry that message to other parts of that land. And Bibi Masnaqum set out for that reason. That was one of the reasons. She comes in a place called Salve, she gets sick. She asks how far is home from here. They say about 10 farsak, 60 kilometers. They bring her to the city of Qom. She was brought there. There's a place called Baitul Nur. Last time when we went for ziyarah from here, we visited that place. It still is intact and is a ziyarah gah. She stayed there for 16 to 17 days and eventually she passed away from the severity of the travel that she had faced and of course in the journey that she had set out upon. Of course it is mentioned that when she left this world, two personalities came out of nowhere. One was Imam al-Rada, the second was Imam Taqi al-Jawad alayhi. Both of them came out of Hijaz and they buried Masnaqum and lowered her into the grave where she is. I said, oh Masnaqum, indeed you took this travel and journey upon you to go set out and see your brother, which you weren't able to see, and you died on the way. But at least people were there to keep intact as far as your chastity and as far as your karamat is concerned, as far as your reverence is concerned. But come to your Jadda Fatimatu Zahra, what happened to her? That her house was brought, fire was brought upon it, the door was brought down, and Fatimatu Zahra was struck between the door and the people. After Dawana. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Please have a Surah Fatiha for the Mahumeen whose names were recited in the beginning as well as your own Islam. Yeah. ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم.
اللهم صل على
السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا رسول الله، وعلى عمك أمير المؤمنين ولمنتك فاطمة الزهراء سيد النساء العالمين، وعلى ولديك الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، وعلى تسعة المعصومين من بيت الحسين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث علي أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام ولي الله، السلام عليك يا المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة، السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة، عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثار الموتور، أشهد أنك قد أقمت وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين، ولعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمت، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأسرار الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها، ولم تلمسك من ملهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن أئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والقروة الوسطى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سن وأمري لأمركم متبع، صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم، لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة صلبت، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباه، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأبداه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الناصح، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها وفزتم فوزا عظيما فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوسيين. السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الأخ الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. وألحقكم الله بدرجة آبائك في جنات النعيم. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس أنيس النفوس أيها المدفون بأرض الطوس. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا إمام زماننا عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل الله مخرجه وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك. السلام عليك ورحمة الله وبركاته.
You have to say Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz everyone.
Thank you.
के चैनल को अनसब्सक्राइब कर दें।
हैं ये क्या कर